Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I'm Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out. Yeah! 40. It is very close. 15, 10, 5.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like this podcast. As always, we're your host, Blake, my brother, Brooks. Happy to be back. We have not done one of these in a really long time. So if you are new or, longtime listener, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel.
Rip to our longtime listeners, man. We'll get you back hopefully someday, man. It's been like 2 months. We both sort of got frustrated there at the end of the season, understandably. But we're back. We're not stopping. This is a 10-year, 20-year plan that we got going on here.
Yeah.
So.
No, between just how the season ended and just the time of the year, like travel and everything, I got really, really busy. It was totally my fault. So it was just, it was just not a great time. In my free time, I just didn't want to have to talk about a losing football team. That was what it came down to. But yeah, just follow us on X at @CHusker_corner or Instagram Cornhusker Corner. Now that the off season's happening, especially some of the stuff that's happening today, super, 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 super exciting.
No doubt about it.
And never lost faith. Indubitably, never lost faith. But it's hard. How that man, just let's touch on that just for a second, because before we get into that, we are gonna do kind of like a year-end review. We did it last year. We're gonna have that be our January podcast. Obviously if stuff happens in the off season to where we can warrant 2 a month, we're gonna do that, but most of the time it's gonna be 1 a month. So that's going to be our January podcast. We're going to go back, look at some of the things we said earlier on the season in camp,
laugh
at ourselves, see what happened and what didn't. One of our big ones from last year was Trey Palmer. He did snap off. So that was one of the good ones. The only probably good one.
Most of our takes were awful. And I'm expecting a lot of our takes this year to be awful as well. But I mean, that's just, it is what it is. If hindsight is 2020. But I mean, I guess to summarize our thoughts on the actual play on the field from the 2023 season, there was a lot of encouraging things from Nebraska. I think we got to get that out of the way right off the bat. Number one, the defense. I mean, they were a top 15 unit statistically to finish the year, which was very, very impressive and really encouraging, because even Scott Frost's best defense, which was probably 2021 defense, definitely the 2021 defense, I don't think it was anywhere near the top 15. They were a good, solid unit, but I don't think they were anywhere close to that. So, and we also got Tony White back from he had opportunities. So that's very encouraging coming off the year. Defense played really well. They look like our culture lends itself. I think the biggest point I figured out this year in just watching a bunch of teams and also watching Nebraska, let's compare them to USC. They're a team that's coming into the Big Ten next year. And I think that the biggest problem with Lincoln Riley teams, as they have stood for the last, close to a decade at this point, sample size, he runs the style of offense. That lends itself to not having as physical practices as you can. Because everything's going so fast. And from a defensive perspective, if you're dealing with a Lincoln Riley offense in practice, you don't have as much time to stop and say, hey, you needed to do this on this play, you needed to do that. Hey, let's get lined up, let's get our feet set. It's hard to really practice well in that environment. Rule, on the other hand, made a comment sort of when people were asking about Tony White's job, which was that he said, look, quite frankly, I've had good defenses everywhere I've been. And I think that's a result of the type of practices they do. And I think we saw that on the field this year, especially defensively. And I think our offensive line improved as well. Just in the physical nature of how we played, we were more physical than the most physical Scott Frost teams, which is really saying something.
Absolutely. And let's just put it right out in the open. The only reason that we weren't a bowl team this year is because the inconsistency from quarterback play.
No doubt.
Only reason. Only reason.
Mm-hmm.
Even with all of the injuries in the wide receiver room, in the running back room, even with all that, the inconsistency in the quarterback play, that's what, ultimately was our undoing. And it's unfortunate how it ended up shaking out, especially with a top 15 defense. Yeah. Even Iowa can figure out how to be a bowl team with a great defense like that.
it's inexplicable. It's crazy that it ended that way.
One
of the comments I said that you could bring up was right before going into those last 4 weeks. I was like, there is no way we don't win at least one of these games. I said that. Yeah. I was like, I'll say it right now and I'll stand on it. There is no way we don't win one of these last 4 games. And we go 0-4. It was a sad end to the year because there was a lot of encouragement. But sorry, go ahead. I thought
but listen, there's a lot of great things that we're going to talk about later. So I'm going to get into my pessimist side right here. Watching the Philadelphia Eagles this year, and anybody that's listened knows I'm a big Eagles fan, right? The things that they have wrong with their offense is almost the same exact thing that we had wrong with our offense, and it's the play calling. It's the offensive coordinator. It's the you can just tell that they're either way in over their head, or they just don't know how to call a good offense. That was a lot of the case with Nebraska. Now the Eagles, just because they're an NFL team, do have a good quarterback, and they have way too much talent to be how they're doing. So I think it's even a little bit more glaring with the Eagles than it was with Nebraska. Right. But some of the things that I was seeing, the parallels, so the Eagles are on a 3-game losing skid. Yeah, they have not scored over 20 points in either of those losses. And every single time, they started off hot, they got to score right away, and then they stagnated the rest of the game.
So the league's figured them out a little bit? Is that what's happening?
No, not for the Eagles. Well, I'll finish my thought there. So, but they've scored less than they scored their first possession, and then stagnated the rest of the time, and they just can't figure it out. But no, the offensive coordinator is trying to be too cute. He's trying to get away from things that are working because he thinks, I'm going to try to confuse them because that's working. So I'm going to try to do this. And you might know this, but Brian Johnson is the offensive coordinator for the Eagles right now. Brian Johnson was the offensive coordinator for University of Houston under one of the major Applewhite teams. And he was there for 1 year, and he left. He got fired, but he left. And so our dad.
And now he's an NFL coordinator. That's a hell of a ride.
But he has been with Jalen since high school. He was on his high school team. He was the quarterback's coach last year, so I thought it was just a natural fit, But that being said about the Eagles, this is a Nebraska podcast. I see a lot of similarities just within the play calling of this stubborn things that I want to do this, so I'm going to do it. Not this is working, I'm going to do this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I see a lot of that in Sat, and I really hope that the things that he was calling in the games were just really working in practice against a really good defense. So it gave him more confidence. And I do think that might've been a little bit part of it. And then a part of it is his lack of willing to adapt a little bit. So if there's anything in this offseason and the past, those 4-game losing skid that Nebraska went on at the end of the season just really left a bad taste in your mouth. Yeah. The only thing really was the play calling.
Yeah.
Because like you said, because the offensive line played.
I agree with that. I mean, the
offensive line played that.
The turnovers. I mean, that's really where you have to focus it on, because I agree. Sure. In instances where you have Heinrich Harburg out there, and then he calls 3 straight pass plays on I don't know, for a 3 and out to try to just get Heinrich into a rhythm. I don't know what he was really thinking, but stuff like that. Yeah, I totally agree with you. But overall, as a picture, I think that looking at the offense, if I'm going to take a more positive spin on everything you just said, looking at the offense, the play calling was not great at times. I completely agree with that. But the quarterback play that we had for the majority of the year lended itself to not having a unlimited playbook for an offensive coordinator. I mean, if you're playing Madden and you have a 71 level quarterback, your playbook is limited. You're not going to be able to do certain things versus if you have a 99 level quarterback. It's a different thing. So there, I think there's some of that, and I think you also the turnovers are a huge glaring concern, and I think that also but to agree with you, I think that also reflects on Satterfield as well, because it was a common theme among all three quarterbacks that played. So that's something that definitely needs to be corrected. I mean, we talked about the positive things about Nebraska, but those are certainly the negative things. The offensive just, it seemed like they couldn't get clicking ever. You know, they would get clicking and then have a mistake, and then they would get clicking a little bit and then have a mistake. And you could see the vision at times. You saw like flashes of what they want it to look like, largely due to the offensive line in certain instances. But I agree. I think
and it's
a
funny.
concern.
You may disagree with me here, but watching this team, the things that were really frustrating about the offense this year were not the same things that were frustrating about the Scott Frost era. Like Adrian Martinez on this team, we might have only lost 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, the Scott Frost era offense's MO was basically like lots of yards, no points. You know what I mean? Basically, if you had to sum it up in one phrase, lots of yards, no points.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it was. Versus Rule is like yards at times, shooting yourselves in the foot. Yards at times, sometimes points, shooting yourselves in the foot. You know what I mean? It's a little different. Scott Frost's offense sort of ran into that at times, but not overall.
No, but I'm more so thinking about like just the quarterback play and how much that was scrutinized, because Adrian had nothing to work with. Yeah. I'm sorry. The players, some of them are there, some of them aren't right now, but I'm sorry. The offensive line was not a problem this year. Yeah. Just if you watch a lot of football, that offensive line was not problematic.
Especially towards the early mid and end of the year whenever positions got shaken up a little bit. Justin Evans Jenkins played, Prohashka was starting. They really started to click. At the beginning of the year, they had their struggles. Unfortunately, Corcoran didn't show the same improvement this year at that position that Benhart did. Benhart, I think, is a huge bright spot this year. I think he just had a complete turnaround year. I think Corcoran, it's just been proven at this point. He's a guard. I think he's a good guard though, but he's a guard. He's not a tackle, which is unfortunate, because if you look at like today, a top 10 list kept circulating around, because we got Rayola and we'll talk about that later, but a top 10 list kept circulating around of the top 10 recruits that Nebraska's ever gotten. And the number 8 overall recruit that Nebraska has ever gotten is Turner Corcoran at offensive tackle. That was his position out of high school. So it's a little bit peculiar that he's never really been able to develop into that college prototypical offensive tackle, but it's unfortunate, and I think it's been proven at this point.
But again, if you look at like the offensive line play, just grading, right? How many of our offensive line got honors, or what was it, second Big Ten or a third Big Ten? It was whatever. But they got
two
recognized.
D linemen on honorable mention. That was the only ones.
Ben Scott
on honorable mention.
Ben Scott,
well.
And then
was it Nurdin?
One other. No,
Newelly?
It might have been Benhart. Honestly,
might have been Benhart. Okay,
yeah,
I didn't notice that. That's awesome. They got honorable mention.
Yeah, but there was two that got recognized. Nice. I remember that on the offensive line. But that being said, the wide receiver room, even with how much attrition and anything, you never noticed them being a glaring problem. Do you know what I mean? There were some drops here or there, but they're young. They made plays when they had to. It's about getting the ball where it's supposed to go.
Yep.
It's now when we have a quarterback.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But as far as last year,
but as far as last year goes, that consistency, they just have to do something. And I hope they get it figured out with the talent that they have now.
I think that's another encouraging thing that you can look at with this is the young talent pretty much everywhere that you saw. But to me, especially it's wide receiver. I look at those young wide receivers that played a lot this year, and I'm looking for them to make a huge jump this
Especially
next year.
Lloyd, dude.
Lloyd, Malachi. I mean, Malachi after another year in the program, man.
I know. Like Malachi with just like how the dude looks, how he runs, how everything. I hope he takes that stride. But I'm actually more impressed and excited for how Jalen Lloyd develops. Just because he was able to take that step.
Yep.
He was able to be that deep threat.
Yep. Looked like Trey Palmer out there at times.
Yeah.
I mean,
he
seriously.
did.
I mean, like and again, I played line. I mean, I was a skilled position during Pee Wee times. They would put me at running back and wing back and all this. But for the most part of my actual football in high school, I played line. So it's always baffled me. I'm like, well, yeah, of course he caught the ball. He was wide open. That's sort of, like that. That's how I think about it. Well, no. The fact that he was wide open is the thing that was impressive. He's going against guys that are also fast. Yeah. So like if he's able to take the top off like that, the fact that he is in that position is impressive in and of itself. And that's what the thing that, I mean, Trey Palmer made a couple of really good plays. Don't get me wrong. But for the most part, it was just him taking the top off the defense. And the really spectacular part of the play occurred before the ball had even been released, So I agree. Jalen Lloyd can be that type of guy. Totally.
Yeah. And listen, having played the position, not at that level, but like having played the position, there's little things that you can do to get open, like little things, like your head going like that can make the D-back just completely, like there's so many things that you can do that you learn by playing more. And because pure athleticism can get you really, really far. But there were things that I had to do because I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the quickest, but I was able to get open because I was able to figure out those little things. And for somebody like Jalen Lloyd or Malachi that can figure those little things out, because in the high school, they can just cruise off of just how freaking athletic they are, right? But every step you take, you have to learn those little things. Yep. So another year in, they're gonna take the step. And they're going to learn those things.
And I also thought Jaden Doss looked good when he was in. He didn't do much overall over the course of the entire year. I think he might have even maintained his red shirt, but he looked like he belonged out there. And then there were some other young guys that didn't even get playing time that I'm still excited about in the coming future. But talking about more young guys that looked good this past year on the D-line, man, I mean, you got to be excited about some of the young D-linemen that we have with Cam Linhart, and with Prince Omanmielen, and with Riley Van Poppel looked good at times as well, stuffing in the middle. And then we got Nash and Ty coming back, or I believe both of them coming back, right?
Yep.
Or one of them at least, or both.
Ty's
it's both of
back.
them. Ty's coming back, and then Nash announced shortly after, and it's sort of like the Ty news had happened, and then everyone was like, and Nash too. And it was like, dude, that's just as good. I mean, so we got two potential. I mean, those guys, let's be real. Like at their position in that like gap stuffer sort of big man position, what do you call 2-tech or a 2-eye, something like that, where they really play. They have the potential to be first or second team all Big Ten next year. No doubt about it. A lot of people thought they got snubbed, should have been at least on the second team this year, but I think we got two guys returning that are potential all Big Ten players at that position. It's very important.
I think you actually posted something on X that was really, really indicative of those kind of rankings. Like you said, like, I understand this, but you get more people in, the more you're winning. So, like, we had a top 15 defense. If you really look at that squad, there were probably two people in there, but we didn't win enough games for them to be recognized, even though if you look at their play.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I mean, like, could you imagine? I mean, the way that Deshaun Singleton was playing in the secondary before he got hurt at Michigan, if he had continued to play like that throughout the course of the year, that's an all Big Ten defensive back. I mean, like, no doubt about it. He was playing with his freaking hair on fire, and a lot of those dudes were playing with their hair on fire, and unfortunately, not a whole lot of them. I don't think any of them got recognized. I think Nash and Ty were the only two that got any honors. on the defensive side of things. If I remember, maybe Quentin Newsome on third.
There might have been
team.
Some
like Quentin Newsome.
Might have been some honorable mention here.
Yeah,
and there,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they deserved more than they got, but again, it's because we dropped those last 4 games, and it's because of quarterback play, which I think at this point we've talked enough about the 2024 season. It's been a big day. Today was early National Signing Day, and for Nebraska, it was our National Signing Day basically, because we are not going to a bowl game. So if you think about early National Signing Day, it's pretty crazy because half of these coaches are coaching right now. They have teams that are playing, in some cases in a couple days, in other cases in a couple weeks, and yet they have to juggle all this recruiting stuff going on in the middle of their season. I mean, it's really, a lot of coaches don't like it, but for me, it's kind of interesting because my team doesn't get to a bowl game, and then we have something to sort of keep the news cycle popping. And boy, was it popping this year, because last week on about Monday, all of us refreshed our Twitter feeds and got the notification pretty much of the year, which was that Dylan Raiola decided that he was essentially, it was a done deal at that point, but it sounded like Rule wanted him to show up, wanted him to visit, wanted him to take it all in and really make his decision and take as much time as he could in that period of time, which makes sense of why the decision came out later than it did. But all week we were all sort of waiting for an announcement, waiting for something. And then finally, the other night on Monday, he announced that he is flipping to Nebraska from Georgia. A 5-star quarterback. He was the top quarterback in the nation, top prospect in the nation for the majority of the cycle until really like the last couple weeks. I feel like when people got wind he was going to Nebraska, they were like, yeah, we're going to rank him down a little bit. But he's the prospect. He's a prospect that we've never really had the caliber of before, ever.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting.
And he's number 1 quarterback prospect on some, and I think the lowest he is 4.
Right.
And I think that's the one that's like a little bit biased, because if you look at our rankings just in general compared to some other programs, you're like, all right.
Yeah, I think that might be the ESPN one, which they don't even have an office for recruiting anymore. Like people laugh at the ESPN rankings because they just sort of like whatever.
Yeah, I think it's really funny though. Both me and you, when we got the news of Dylan coming back into the fold a little bit, we kind of were like, little hesitant. We've been burned here before, because he was supposed to be leaning Nebraska last time. Right. And then it might have been, what was that, Saturday night when we called each other?
No, it was the morning that he committed.
So it was Sunday.
Yeah, no, it was Monday morning. It was Monday morning. Yes, it was, because he committed in the afternoon, and I remember being like, "Dang, Blake and I literally talked this morning about this, and we both were like,
nah."
Because it got to Monday.
I could have sworn it was Sunday.
No, I had switched. No, I remember, because I had switched my feelings by Monday, because I was like, "Man, he still hasn't committed. All right, I don't think he's going to." Like literally, like I remember thinking. So then I called you and we were talking, and I was like, I don't think he's committing, bro. Like I don't think this is gonna happen.
Yeah, we're just like, he's just in it to get more NIL out of the Georgia fans.
Exactly. and then I was like, damn. And then about 4 or 5 hours later, I get a text from you that was like, well, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very exciting. The unfortunate side effect of the whirlwind that was Dylan Raiola's recruitment is that, man, he could have committed in May. He could have committed, a year ago, and we would have been reaping the benefits of having a player like that in our class. And I really think the benefits would have been there. But as it stood, he committed on Monday, and the Huskers really only had 48 public hours to reap any benefits of that for this early signing period. They made a late run at a 5-star or high 4-star, low 5-star, whatever receiver that was gonna sign to Texas, and then he's from Missouri, so Missouri made a push for him, and Rule knew him and Raiola had a relationship, so Rule was making a push for him. He ended up signing to Texas, so there was no other real big surprises today other than a transfer guy we got and a flip that we got
we got
Bly
a couple
Hill,
flips today.
Bly Hill.
Bly Hill was the transfer. Then we got Vincent Shavers.
He was a flip
Miami
from
commit.
Miami, yeah.
And then we got a Maryland commit flip.
Yeah, that's right.
Larry Tarver.
Larry Tarver, yeah.
And then another cornerback, Amari Sanders.
Nice. Yeah, so, I mean, overall, when you look at the class, it's solid. I mean, it's one of the more exciting-looking classes that we've had. Probably the most exciting-looking class we've had in the last since I've been paying attention to it. We have a 5-star quarterback to headline it. Man.
Sure. I mean, so for 5-star, yeah. Scott
Grant
Frost,
Bricks, 5 different number 1 players in states. I mean, like,
for sure. But I will say, for all of Scott Frost's issues, he was a good recruiter for the most part. Especially in his second recruiting class, not the one where he got hired. So this cycle within his Nebraska tenure, and same with Rules, his second one, not on par, but he had a top 25.
But 80% of them were shotgun weddings. They didn't last.
No, they didn't last.
You know what I mean?
I know.
Yeah, like
half of them.
Here's a Bill Bush saying that's perfect. Here's a Bill Bush saying that's perfect for this. Recruiting classes are judged 4 years later. That's how you judge a recruiting class. You don't judge a recruiting class right after it happens. All these ranking sites, they rank them, and then they forget about them, and then the recruiting class is over. That was the number 1 class. But they should be graded 4 years later looking back at it, because that's really what matters at the end of the day, right?
No,
and that's what I think Rule will thrive on, you know?
Absolutely. And here's an indicative thing of that. In his press conference today, Rule said, we have our own transfer portal. We got Isaac Gifford back. We got, I don't remember all the names. I remember Isaac Gifford because that's the
Gifford
one I was most
Ben
excited
Hart
about.
and
like Ben Hart and
Robinson. I mean, you can include a lot of those guys. It's the point.
And he said, that's our own transfer portal. We were able to get these guys back when they could. Like he said, he named a couple guys that could have been drafted, but they wanted to come back. They wanted to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
That, for me, is indicative of a culture, especially nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody wants the next thing. Everybody wants more money. Everybody wants to play in the NFL. You look at Garrett Nelson last year. Who knows what would happen to him if he stuck around? No
doubt about it. I think he's a third round pick if he sticks around. You know,
probably. Yeah. Not to shade him a little bit. But that was just one that came to mind.
No, it's not shading him at all because we think he had the potential. It's just we're just looking at the decision with hindsight and in context. It's like, man, we liked you. That's really all it is, you know, like
with year 2 under a system that they had to learn last year and they were top 15. Yeah. And if you can get the offense to even be serviceable, I'm not talking about the best offense under Bo, even like the Tommy Armstrong freshman year.
Yeah,
I think that was his best offense, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Taylor Martinez freshman year. That was a serviceable offense with a great defense, right?
Yeah.
That would have been a national championship team with the defense the year before.
Probably, yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know, but all these offenses, it's true. But I think like the monumental nature of, and I just mean this in kind, the monumental nature of the decisions and the news that's been coming out in the last few weeks, it puts the offensive conversation at Nebraska into a different stratosphere than those offenses that you're talking about. If that player that we get, if Dylan Raiola fulfills the potential that the recruiting services say that he has, then it puts the offensive expectation and ceiling at a different caliber than any of those offenses that we just mentioned. We have a 5-star quarterback that Ohio State wanted, that Georgia wanted. We have a quarterback that coaches looked at and said, we can win a national championship with this guy. And I'm not saying Nebraska's going to win a national championship with this guy, but what I'm saying is serviceable should be the floor with this guy. He threw 34 touchdowns and 1 interception in his senior year of high school. 34 touchdowns and 1 interception in his dude, he's a beast. Here's exactly how I would describe his play style. Here's exactly how I would describe. I've looked at film. I've watched a bunch of. Once I figured out he was committing, I was like, all right, let's do some research.
Yeah, see,
so I looked at film. There was this one guy who's a Georgia film guy on YouTube. His name's actually Brooks Austin, as I think his name. He's awesome. He's got great videos. Check him out. The Film Guy is, I think, his YouTube channel. But anyway, he broke it down. Dylan Raiola has elite ball placement, like as far as touch, as far as putting the ball in the basket. He's got generational ball placement with those types of throws. I mean, what he does is he's like Steph Curry in the sense of like the shots aren't flat. You know, Steph Curry shoots a ball to the moon. I mean, Dylan Raiola does exactly what every wide receiver wants when they're streaking down the field, which is he throws a moon ball that drops into your hands where you want it. You know what I mean? And that's really what he's best at, is those touch passes and those moon balls, those 15-yard corner routes. I mean, the balls that you need to just tap the button. That's what he's really good at. And he's good. He's a big-bodied quarterback. This guy Brooks Austin compared him, I think, to Big Ben was his biggest comparison. Which, if you ask me, a Big Ben style quarterback fits the culture of Nebraska really well. I mean, so it's just,
I don't know. Because Nate Stanley was a Big Ben style quarterback.
Different caliber. We're talking about different calibers.
No.
Talking about different calibers.
I think that's a disservice to, just for clarity, I think that's a disservice to Raiola to compare him to Big Ben, because Big Ben was a completely immobile quarterback.
Yeah, but he ran tough when he needed to. I mean, Raiola's not. Yeah, I mean, that's why they call him Big Ben, because he's huge and he's hard to tackle.
Because he was hard to tackle, not because he was running and they tried to tackle him.
But if he needed to run, he could, because
he was hard to sack.
Yeah, because if he got to the line of scrimmage, they're tackling him and he's falling forward and it's a 3.5-yard gain. I mean, like that's why his nickname is what it is. Yeah. Dylan Raiola has got mobility. He is mobile, but that's not the name of his game. He's not looking to run the majority of the time. He's looking to pass off of his mobility and his ability to evade the rush.
Well, listen, there was one
he's a passing quarterback, you know.
Like, you said something about like placement, and that is true. He's throwing balls even at the high school level in a place where only his guy can get it. Yeah. And again, didn't play at that level, but that is a hard throw. Yeah. You know, like they teach you that you go to camps, they teach you how to throw it to certain spots. It's hard to do it. Yeah. It's hard to do it, especially hard to do it in a game situation. Yep. When people are rushing, you have to think about the line. You have to think about the coverage. You have to think about where your people are supposed to be. It's hard. It's hard. And there was one throw that I saw like on his little highlight that I think Nebraska Instagram posted today. That was just like, oh my God. Like he got out of a sack, rolled around, and then he was running, saw his guy running in the opposite direction, and he just kind of went like this. And he threw it 40 yards down the field, perfect, across his body. Do you understand how hard that is to do?
Yeah. No, like, I don't.
No, I know you don't.
I can't even understand a little bit.
Zach Wilson got
we're just going to let this roll while we talk.
Yeah. So Zach Wilson got a first-round draft pick because he made a throw like that in his pro day. That's one of the only reasons, because they saw his arm talent, his mobility running one way and being able to throw it. And he threw it basically the exact same way. So when I saw that, I was just like, oh my gosh. I mean, so you look at some of these throws. I mean, the guy's wide freaking open. That's
no doubt about it. But what were we just talking about? And Dylan Raiola had a star-studded offensive there, and there's his mobility, but creativity. I mean, look at that, man. Stuff I don't like to see at the college level.
You know,
but there you go, moving around in the pocket.
He's wearing 15. Why is he wearing 15?
Tommy Frazier. Supposedly, that's what people were talking about today.
Tommy Frazier?
Yeah.
It's Patrick Mahomes, dude.
Yeah, that's what everyone says. But, you know, he took the picture with 15 on the field, and everyone was talking about Tommy Frazier. So that's why I went to that.
Yeah, okay, but he's wearing 15 because of Patrick Mahomes.
No doubt about it. That's who he wants to be.
Look at that. That is the throw. Oh my gosh.
Let's watch that again. Hang on.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's an insane throw. Okay, here it is.
So he's on the far right hash. He's rolling out to his right, and he throws it back, and the guy catches it almost in the middle of the field. That is wild.
Yeah, it's wild arm talent. So one thing that you won't see on this tape, and this guy Brooks Austin brought this up as well. One thing that you won't see on this tape is a lot of laser beam balls. You know, the balls over the middle that you need to fit between two guys, and you need to throw a laser beam. Not that he can't do it, right? You see this guy's arm. I mean, look at this. I mean, he's his entire lower body immobilizing. He hits the 15-yard out. But yeah, so you see this guy's arm talent. Not that he can't throw those laser beam balls in the middle, but it seems like that's not where he's most comfortable based on the play calls that the high schools are calling, or at least on his highlight tapes.
Not just that. Like, high school ball is different, dude. Like, you know as well as I do. They don't try to nickel and dime down the field. They try to call home run shots almost every single play.
Yeah, especially when you got a guy like Dylan Raiola. I mean,
yeah, and wide receivers like those guys are 2-3 yards behind the coverage.
Yeah,
like he has to get it there.
Yeah,
but I mean, some of these throws are really good, especially like the time he gets in the pocket. Those are the most impressive.
Yeah,
ones
no, that was the thing. That was the note about the Buford high school team. Incredible. They were Colorado this year. Incredible skilled positions. Horrible trench play. I don't want to crap on too many high school players, but that's what I heard about them. Not very good trench play, really good skill positions. So a lot of there was comments that people were pulling up from Georgia, people from like who were watching his games throughout the year, right? They were like, "Oh my God, this guy is incredible. He's the guy of the future. Look at him. He has no offensive line, and they almost won solely because of Raiola." Like all this stuff, and now they're all salty and everything. But
no, I think it's so funny. The Georgia fans like, well. Congratulations when he transfers before next year. Like, congratulations because he's not even that great. Like, okay. When I remember when it was between us two back in like April, May, and then he had decided to go to Georgia. I remember like, that's what he chooses, going to a winning program because he actually wants to win. He's the one of the future. He's going to replace it and we're going to win 4 more. And I was like, okay.
And now it's completely okay. So like 2 points, excuse me, 2 points. The reason why we're giving so much light and air to this guy, a freshman coming in, is first of all, because we talked about it. He's a 5-star. He's the biggest blue chip recruit Nebraska's ever gotten, and it's at the quarterback position. But it's number 2 because Chubba Purdy entered the transfer portal today. That news just dropped. So here's what we're looking at. We're looking at this. He's going to be our starting quarterback this next year. Whether you like a true freshman to be our starting quarterback or not.
Unless Harburg takes a major step.
Yeah, major step forward. He's going to be our starting quarterback this next year. So we're riding with Dylan Raiola. And
you never know.
And the third point I wanted to make and bring up, and the most unfortunate thing about the whole thing, was Dylan Raiola's announcement video and the poem. I didn't love it. I thought it was a little hokey and a little bit like, it felt like something that would happen in the Frost era is what it felt like. Oh my God, they're going to bookmark this and bring this up in 4 years, you know? And here was the other thing. The end of his video, it was a badass video, but the end of it, he's like walking on the field. And what song did they choose? I'm coming home. Coming home. The same exact mix and version of the song they used for like all the Frost compilation videos back in the day. And it just did not give me the best feeling. On his face, I'm like, man, blue chip recruit. Look at this guy. He's going to be our starting quarterback. I'm excited. But if it doesn't work out, there's plenty of bookmarked material. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's just hang on the quarterback room just for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I want to pose 2 things to you. One, Daniel Kalen still signed with Nebraska. That means he's not scared of competition.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He did not have a great senior season.
No.
He really didn't, but their entire team didn't.
Yeah.
So a lot of that can't be placed on one kid. Like he's been evaluated, he's been judged. I do think that he could be a good player.
Look, the best team in the history of Nebraska played this year. It was the West Side, Omaha West Side. Damon Benning is actually one of their coaches. And Caleb Benning, who committed to Nebraska today, is on that team. They killed everybody. They were like the 95 Nebraska Cornhuskers dominant this year. I mean, if you look at their playoffs, it was like 45-7, 52-7, 45-7. And their starting quarterback, Teddy Rizak, a lot of locals wanted Nebraska to offer Teddy Rizak. We didn't offer Teddy Rizak. We offered Daniel Kaelin instead. There's something to be said about the quarterback position, though, being highly specialized. And there's certain, like, just skills that people have that just, like, show you potential of them. And, like, it's a special skill set. And just because it didn't translate in the senior season in high school to where he was Johnny Unitas for his team doesn't mean he can't be that in college, or at least a serviceable college quarterback. So yeah, I mean,
you plug and play.
Yeah,
you find somebody with massive talent on a team with no talent.
Yep.
And yeah,
and if you're a fan,
I'm not saying that his team didn't have any talent. I have no clue.
Yeah, they did. I mean, Isaiah McMorris and Davon Hall, man, they're in the class. They're the two big stud receivers for the class, really.
Yeah, but I mean, so yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. If you're a fan, you just got to trust your head coach's your head coach and his staff and their skills for evaluation. And right now, I trust Rhule's evaluation skills. He's made one big mistake, and that was in Jeff Sims. And I think it was because he got a recommendation from his buddy who was the coach over there before.
Yeah. And you look at Jeff Sims and you think, I can do it.
Exactly. There's so much appealing about him. I see what they saw in him.
And you're just like, oh my gosh, the physical talent.
Yep.
We can fix it.
Yep.
We can fix it.
Exactly. He was the hot girl. He was the
bad. He was the bad boy.
Yeah.
The hot girl. He could fix.
She could fix. Yeah, that's exactly who he was. No doubt about it. But yeah, so one big glaring mistake. But besides that, I mean, all of the just like falling through the crack talent that they've just found and brought in, that so far it's looked like, I mean, James Williams to me is the biggest example that edge rushers who everyone calls, I think, the Loch Ness Monster, but he's just long and he looks good. They're really good at finding those types of dudes, and I trust Rhule with his evaluation. So
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, again, the other thing is what I was going to say is, with Purdy leaving, there's going to have to be a step up in the quarterback play. And before Purdy left, I was thinking that he was just going to get the starting job. I really did, because I thought that Heinrich might have transferred to another position, because that dude needs to get on the field because he is very athletic.
Mm-hmm.
He's tough. He's athletic. He could be the number 2 slot, like with the receiver, because he would be better than Borgager. Let's just be honest.
And
he could also be better than Fedoni.
If you open your mind all the way too, I could see him as a hell of a linebacker. I could see him as a number of, you know what I mean? He's a football player. Like, he's fast. He's got the athleticism. He's tough. Like, I mean, you can adapt and be anything. It's now very rare is it for a quarterback to go to linebacker.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the days of old, like, nobody would look at you square and, he's a tough guy, and I want to see him get on the field too. So H-back seems like it would be like that position, that H-back sort of hybrid.
So we went from the 4 guys, and maybe 2 hours ago, it was announced like Chubba Purdy was into the transfer portal. So who knows now? There's actually another, I think, walk-on quarterback we got. It was a Bodie. Something.
Yeah, Bodie. Yes,
he's another Nebraska kid.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. If you look at a month ago, our quarterback room was Jeff Sims, Chubba Purdy, Heinrich Harburg, and another guy, and now it's Daniel Kaelin, Dylan Raiola,
Casey Thompson.
That's the other rumor I sort of actually did want to touch on for a second.
Yeah.
So he was in Nebraska, like, that's confirmed. It was on social media that about a week ago. He was in Nebraska, and then people started pulling up the student directory and were like, he's in the student directory, and everyone was like, but anybody's in the student directory, but it says graduate student. He was not a graduate student before, so he's enrolled that's how I'm looking at it. Like, it wouldn't say graduate student if he wasn't a graduate student.
Sure.
And so if it's from the same profile as before, like, it wouldn't say that. So he's in the directory as a new graduate student.
Again,
I think he's going to coach. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's
when you sent me that, And you're like, oh man, I think he might transfer. I was like, nah, he's gonna coach.
Yeah.
Because that dude is so freaking smart.
Right.
Just with like
football IQ
athletic
through the roof.
Through the roof.
Yeah.
His ability was good enough.
Yeah. But his brain was really his best attribute, no doubt about it. I mean, he could be a great coach. His release, I think, is the most unspoken thing about him that almost nobody talks about. Casey Thompson had a quick release, a very quick, like an elite quick release. Yeah. Now, there was other things about his games game that brought him down and that weren't elite, but his release was the elite physical part of his game. His release was elite. But again, people are talking about him coming back to play. That's not feasible to me because he's hurt still right now. He wouldn't be able to compete in the spring. It just wouldn't make sense to use a roster spot.
He's been hurt the past 4 years of his.
Rules already said he doesn't want to bring in a 1-year fix. To me, this transitions the conversation perfectly to something that's also off-season talk that we probably should touch on, which is, okay, is the plan going to be Casey Thompson coming in and being maybe a GA QB coach, and then Satterfield moving in to be the offensive coordinator solely, and then maybe they make Josh Martin the tight ends coach a full-time tight ends coach? Is that the option? Because maybe that's on the table, but it seems like Rule's gonna do something. All those complaints that we had towards the beginning of the show about the offense, he probably saw them too and probably has the same complaints. So he's gonna do something. He even said at the end of the year press conference that he was like,
I want to make this day about the kids and everything. And if I'm going to do something, I'll announce that later.
I'm talking about the month ago press conference, the one from a month ago at the end of the season. He said, we had a plan. Basically, he said we had a plan for that, but then that fell through. So it wasn't like, that's not what I really wanted, is basically what he said. I didn't really want to make Marcus both the OC and the QB's coach. I wanted to bring in a QB's coach and make Marcus the tight ends coach. That ended up working out, is basically what he said. So he said it in coach speak terms. He totally said that, but in coach speak terms, with a tighter bow around it. But anyway, he's going to do something, in my opinion. I think we're going to have some sort of other quarterbacks coach, because he's got to look at that, like I said, with the turnovers.
Because even today, like if there was nothing going to change, he would have said like, no, there's no change. Like, just let's focus on the kids.
Yeah.
That's what he would have said. Like, no, today should be about the kids. If something is going to come down the pike, I will announce it then. I will announce it then. That was his little Freudian, I think. I will announce it then.
He did say that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah. It's funny because so Casey Thompson, he's on everybody's mind when it comes to that, because we all know how good of a quarterback coach he could probably be. I would
love that.
He was the best quarterback we've had in front of the mic since I've watched Nebraska, as far as talking football. No doubt about it. Maybe Zach Taylor, but like it wasn't as heavy of a media era.
I didn't watch nearly as much.
Exactly. So like from what I remember, he was by far the best Nebraska quarterback in front of the mic. So there's that.
And probably Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy was good. Yeah, Tommy was good. But Casey could just talk ball. He sounded like a coach. You know what I mean? He sounded like a coach. And it was apparent he grew up around Charles Thompson, which, first of all, is the other encouraging aspect about Dylan Raiola. He's a football guy. He grew up around football people. But second of all, I just think I want him a part of this program. I like Casey. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a good advocate for wherever he's going to be. But the other option that I've heard on the table is a guy who's a notorious quarterbacks coach across football, a guy named Jeff Christensen, who's the personal quarterbacks coach of Mahomes and of Raiola and actually of Kyle McCord, of a lot of different guys. And he was confirmed he was in Lincoln. Now, I don't know if it had something to do with what was going on with Raiola or whatever, but he was in Lincoln and he had talks with the coaches. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they were interviewing him for something, but if Christensen, that's huge. He's got one of the biggest like quarterback coach brands across the country. So that type of hire could lure in another Dylan Raiola next year. You know what I mean? Maybe not to the level, but it would lure in it's going to lure in more high-level guys that are going to come in the future. So there's interesting things on the horizon as far as coaching shakeups as well. But any other thoughts on any of that?
I would love Casey I really would. Especially it's a low pressure situation right now. It really is, like, for job security, because you're not running the offense. You have to develop two great quarterback prospects, and one Heinrich Harburg, who now has a lot of playing under his belt,
right,
who could really take another step up. All this talk about Dylan, all this talk about Kalen, I do think that Harburg does have the skills to make the next leap. He just has to get the coaching to get there. You know,
that's a lot to ask, but yes,
it is. But I think he has the skills. If not, he needs to be on the field. He's a great athlete. Apart from that, I think Carter Nelson.
Yeah, let's talk about Carter.
Carter is one of these players that he played in 7-man football, and if you look at the tape, it's no wonder that, like, people were trying to, like, recruit him. He looks like he's running over little, like, 12-year-olds.
Yeah,
like, he is a man among boys, and and it's not that I don't think he's going to be successful.
It reminds me of some Westmont type stuff. Totally,
yes,
totally like the Westmont type stuff.
Absolutely. But you look at it and you're just like, is he going to be successful around people that are his same size? It's a big fish, small pond, or I don't know. He's fast. He's big. He can move around. I'm not trying to, like, discredit him at all, but you just look at him and he's just like, and he played like, 7-man football, right?
Eight man, but eight-man football.
8-man football. So it wasn't like,
it's a different game, basically. I mean, he was playing every position because a lot of players play every position, but he was obviously, I mean, his team was the best because he was the best. He's mossing everybody, and then, like, someone misses a tackle and he's 6'4" and runs a 4.5, so he's gone. He's a freak in nature. The thing you're talking about with him playing 8-man football is the only reason he was not a 5-star prospect. The reason he's rated so high when he plays 8-man football is because, from a physicality standpoint, from a physical tools standpoint, the dude is a 5-star athlete, no doubt about it. I mean, this is he was the top ranked player in Nebraska this year.
Yeah, and you look at him move, his catching ability, running ability.
That was him out of the tackles. Wildcat.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at him and like, come on, bro. Like, he's a man among boys. Like, I do think that he's going to have some sort of success, but he's going to have a transition period. Absolutely.
This highlights at this level look like if Jason Kelsey and Tyreek Hill were one person.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's absolutely dominant. Like, he's faster than everybody. He's bigger than everybody. He's stronger than everybody. He's more athletic than everybody. But yeah, Carter Nelson is a guy in this class. Dylan Raiola is obviously going to make an instant impact. I think he's going to be the starting quarterback come the beginning of next year. But
just look at him. Like, you can pick him out of the crowd.
But he's going to have an instant impact as well. The tight end room, Fidoni's coming back as far as I've heard. I don't know why he wouldn't. And I haven't heard anything else. I think
he's all in.
Yeah, he's all in. So Fidoni's coming back. He's already a big prospect. I think he'll be the number 1. But Carter Nelson will probably be the number 2 if they can get him comfortable in 11-man football. That's the big question. But I think that's not too big of an ask. The dude's an athlete. He's a multi-sport athlete.
And
these farm boys that are in Ainsworth are built different, man.
Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, they don't offer people that aren't, like, they don't see somebody and be like, oh, well, he's playing 8-man football. He's not going to translate. They see his position. I'm like, we can do something with that.
Oh, let me tell you this. Just to give you a perspective on Carter Nelson. Ainsworth is a city that has a population of, guess.
5,000.
Let's get a population. 1,615.
Oh my gosh, I overshot it.
You overshot it, yeah, by like
I overshot it 4x. With 5,000.
Yeah, you about 4x'd it or 3x'd it. Yeah. Anyway, so let me give you a perspective. So it's a town of 1,500 people basically, and they have one little tiny airstrip, the Ainsworth airstrip, and the Georgia private jet was at the Ainsworth airstrip, and the Alabama private jet was at the Ainsworth airstrip, and the Notre Dame private jet was at the Ainsworth airstrip, and of course Nebraska's been up there. And then I think Nebraska flew up there. I think they flew up there. They took the helicopter though. No, I'm just kidding. they took Marine One.
Took the drone.
No. But yeah, that's to give you a perspective. It takes a lot. It does. It takes a lot for Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, those types of schools to go all the way out to Ainsworth, Nebraska to recruit a player. Mm-hmm. Carter's got everything. I think he's going to make an instant impact. Very excited about Carter. Awesome ad.
What's another one?
Another one that I can think of. Oh, Grant Bricks. You gotta talk about Grant Bricks a little bit. Grant Bricks is the #1 player in Iowa, I believe. #1 offensive tackle prospect in Iowa, which is something that we've needed. Now, granted, like we've talked about, offensive tackle is another position that like you need a specific set of skills to be really good at the college level, especially. But yeah, I mean he's let's share the screen here. He's the let me get that ad out of there. He's the #1 player in Iowa. He's the #5 offensive tackle in the country in this recruiting cycle, according to the 247 Composite, 78 national player. He had offers from Alabama and Kansas State and Oklahoma and Auburn. Supposedly it came down to Nebraska and Kansas State is what it came down to. And you got to respect Kansas State these days. I mean, Chris Kleiman runs a hell of a program. He's recruiting real people over there. So Grant Bricks, he was the guy that I talked about on the podcast a little while ago that he is going to do in Iowa what Nash Hutmacher did, and I believe South Dakota, which was Nash Hutmacher was a 4-time heavyweight wrestling champion in South Dakota. Grant has the opportunity, or I think he already did. I don't know. I'm not quite 100% sure, but he had the opportunity to do the same thing in Iowa, which if you know anything about wrestling in the country, Iowa is the wrestling state. I mean, Iowa that's like Mecca of wrestling is Iowa. And yeah, so he's just a stud. He's a beast. He's a multi-sport athlete, plays offensive tackle. That's another great prospect.
And not just that, like we got an in-state recruit, the #1 in-state recruit.
Yeah. Well,
away from Iowa.
Yeah, true. The #1 Iowa recruit away, and I think he lives over like just across the river too. I think he's like one of those guys that like is around Husker fans all the time, and like I think his family, a lot of them are Husker fans. So there was a little bit of like, okay, like I'm an Iowa guy, but it's Nebraska, And so that's good. And I think Donovan Raiola, you got to give him credit there. He had the two biggest recruiting wins of the cycle, arguably.
Yeah.
Where Grant Bricks and Dylan Raiola. Carter is obviously a big win. But
if you can't like say like Donovan didn't have any sort of hand until it's
that's
recruiting,
some BS.
Like
I mean like. It definitely helped. Let's just put it that way. It did not hurt at all that Donovan was here.
Rule said something about that. I didn't talk about him, but he has a family member basically in the staff here, so he knows how things go when things aren't going good, when things are going good. Yep. Like maybe.
And on that same note, a huge brain move that Rule instituted this past week was he said, you know what, all my assistant coaches, you're going to go over there, you're going to go over there, and you're going to go over there. You know what, Donovan, you know what you're going to do? You're going to go to your nephew's house and just stay with your nephew for the week. and because of that, there's an NCAA regulation that if a player is being visited by another coach, like you can't go visit him. Like if you're another coach. So Donovan Raiola is another coach, but he's also his uncle. So he was allowed to stay there all week. So the rule just had him posted up so that Georgia couldn't even come in-home visit.
That's funny.
Huge brain moves, man. But that was a big reason we landed him, to be honest. Huge reason. I mean, you just see honestly, there's something that we both can say and that a lot of people can say. Bill Bush on on the show the other day had a segment that was like, be the cool uncle. He was talking about cool uncles. And think about it. Like Donovan's his uncle. Like he's the uncle. He's the cool uncle. And you sort of when there was footage of them at the at the wrestling match, sort of yucking it up, and you could sort of see like they were like just BSing, and it was like, oh yeah, it was funny to me to look at, because I you don't hardly ever see Donovan smiling, but Dylan said something that made him laugh, and
yeah. No, and you look at I don't know, like just how Donovan carries himself and his career. I don't know, what did Dylan's dad do
in the NFL?
Yeah.
Good question. You can just make your point while I look it up.
Yeah. So, but Donovan, I know he had a career, and then he coached in college, he coached in the NFL, and now he's back in college. So he had like a lot of pedigree behind him when Scott actually like hired him. And then that is why Rule kept him, because he knows what he's talking about.
So he played for the Lions for 13 years, Dominic did. Oh. And then he was their actually assistant strength and conditioning coach in 2016. But he was looks like most of his accolades, his career awards are in college. He has his jersey retired at Nebraska, two-time first team All Big 12, 1999, two-time first team. Think about that. We haven't had a one-time first team in so long. Two-time first team, 1999 and 2000. He won the Remington Trophy in 2000, which goes to the most outstanding center in the country. And he was a consensus All-American in 2000 as well. So he was a beast. I believe Donovan played for like 10 years as well. He played for close to a
Donovan
decade,
played for a while too. But
he was the Bears' assistant offensive line coach before Frost hired him. And you know, I've become a fan of Donovan, especially looking at how certs have really turned and things are starting to look a lot better. He's getting some recruiting wins. So Justin Evans Jenkins was a guy who it was Donovan's first recruit as a coach in Nebraska. And it was highly questioned because Justin Evans Jenkins is like, I mean, he's one of those guys that the program probably says he's 6'2", but he's really 5'10", 5'11". He's not the tallest dude in the world. So there was a lot of questions like, where does this guy fit in? Well, shakeups happened this year. Justin Evans Jenkins had to play in his sophomore year, redshirt freshman year, whatever you want to call it. I guess it ended up being his sophomore year, and he looked great. I mean, to me, that's a check. That's a feather in the cap for Donovan Raiola for finding a guy that people had questions for, but he knew could be a lineman at this level. Justin Evans Jenkins at times actually impressed me if you really were watching the line play. So that's a feather in his cap, and then he's getting these recruiting wins now. I mean, there's a number of offensive lineman prospects in this class that we haven't even mentioned. Gibson Pyle and a couple others. I wouldn't want to botch the names, but Grant Bricks is. I mean, that is the flagship of the class, and it is an indicator for where they're trying to recruit, where they're trying to go. So I'm a fan of Donovan's now for sure. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah. And what was funny, like it's just fandom is one of those things that like, it's what have you done for me lately? Mm-hmm. When Rule decided to keep him, it was one of these things that was like, why would you do that? Just clean house, get somebody better. Our offensive line sucks. And to our credit, we even said that, like, the offensive line took a major step up between when he wasn't here and when he got here. Yeah. And it's on record on the internet. It's forever.
Yes.
But one of the things that Rule said that was a big credit was his recruiting. And now that we've gotten a full real recruiting class with a coach that he's been with for more than a year, I can see it. I can see it.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. We got our 5-star quarterback. I mean, like, think about it this way, like Joe Burrow, right? Everyone talks about like Joe Burrow was a guy who wanted to come to Nebraska, and Scott Frost said, "Oh, is he better than what we have?"
In this
and it's just ridiculous because yes, the answer to that question was obviously, looking in hindsight, absolutely 100% yes, because if you have Joe Burrow as a part of your offense, it unlocks so many things for you to be able to do. And having a Joe Burrow in your offense, in some cases, actually can cover up some deficiencies that your offense really has, because, good quarterbacks make you pay. Yeah, it can cover up coaching. Good quarterbacks make you pay. I mean, so if Dylan Raiola is all he's cracked up to be, I mean, we got our guy, and hopefully he can be that guy that'll make him pay. Now it's asking a lot for a freshman to come in and be that guy immediately, but hopefully he'll be here for 3 years, and hopefully he's just serviceable this next year, not throwing a bunch of picks. And if his high school career is any indication, he doesn't throw a lot of picks. Now, do those stats directly translate? I'll tell you this: sometimes no picks translates to no picks at the next level. Almost 100% of the time, a bunch of picks also translates to a bunch of picks at the next level. You know what I mean? So like, it's better than him having a bunch of picks and us hoping, No,
you're right. One of the things that I think was really good on the culture side of things, that I wanted to mention was, a lot of recruiting classes, just in general, have 1, 2, 3 maybe holdouts that want to sign in February. We didn't have any of those.
Yeah.
Everybody that we said we're going to commit to a Nebraska signed today. And that's a big indication that they're bought in. They're people that want to contribute. They want to play for Nebraska, and they believe in the coaching staff.
Yep.
Now there's going to be attrition. There's going to be transfers. It's the nature of the game. But as of it stands right now, today, that's a good indicator of our
we have 3 or 4 people transfer, and one of them is consequential. Chubba. You know what I mean? Up until Chubba, we've had nobody of any real consequence that's transferred. I mean, and who knows? If Raiola is what I just described, Chubba will pretty much have been of no consequence as well. So we'll see, but yeah, one other thing I just wanted to mention is because it was such a huge conversation last year. Now that obviously died for obvious reasons, but going into last year, one of the things we talked about was comparing Nebraska to Colorado, and how it was a bit of going to be an interesting science experiment, basically, to watch it play out, how 2 completely different philosophies play out in real time. So Coach Prime was obviously last year very heavy in the transfer portal, kicked a lot of people basically off of his team, didn't take a whole lot of high school recruits. Rules did the exact opposite. In his first year, which is usually when coaches take their most transfer portals, we only took 12, which was half of what we took the year before, and we took a lot of high school recruits.
And this year, we have 1.
Yeah, and this year we took 1, and so this year even less, right? We've taken 1 transfer, and we might take 1 or 2 more, maybe. Yeah. And we took a whole bunch of high school kids. Meanwhile, over there, Prime only signed 6 high school players. 6 high school players today in the 98th ranked class in the country, and their biggest blue chip prospect, who was a 5-star offensive lineman, who committed 2 weeks ago, and it was like a big news story. He flipped to Maryland. To Maryland today. So yeah, it's again, this is all just to illustrate we're playing them again. It will be another conversation point in the offseason of this year, because that game will probably be Dylan Raiola versus Shedeur Sanders. And it's two completely different philosophies playing out in front of us. Maybe Prime will have a hell of a team this year. Maybe all those mercenaries that are coming to Boulder, Colorado will get it done for him. But he's hired the Golden Company. If you've read A Song of Ice and Fire, you know what I'm talking about. He's hired a bunch of mercenaries. That's what he's hired. And it's I don't know. I mean, both of us were like, we should have taken Prime. We should have taken Prime. How do you feel now? I'm glad we took Rule. I'll say that.
Well, no. Yeah, no. I never thought we should take Prime.
That was my immediate thought when all that played out. There was an immediate thought. Yeah.
There was a moment.
Yeah.
Where we decided to do a podcast, and you said, if you had to bet who was going to be the coach, and I was just like, I don't know. I was completely out of loop, and I was like, I don't know, Prime. But if you look, this is the highest ranked that they are on any list, and this is on 3. And this is actually lower than they were earlier when I checked. They were 33.
Because it seems like it hasn't updated Jordan Seaton either. Because Jordan Seaton was their 5-star, and it says 1 on the 5-star. They don't have him anymore. So if it says Jordan Seaton
wait, hold on. Let's look.
Yeah,
let's look.
Because that's at 42. That's huge. Okay, did they get another 5-star? No, he's not on their specific list. So they just haven't updated. Yeah, he's
Jordan
still on
Seaton.
there. Yep. So yeah.
Oh, so he where did he go to?
He ended up committing to Maryland today. He flipped to Maryland.
Okay. So that's the guy you're talking about.
Well, it's because he wants to play real offensive line. I mean, like, let's be honest. I had this conversation with a couple friends of mine the other day at the Houston game. We were at the Houston game this last weekend. They played A&M. It was fun. It was at Toyota Center. Anyway, I ran into 2 friends there. We were just talking about Colorado. We were talking about college football, a bunch of stuff. But what was I? God, what was I going to say? You had Jordan Seaton up, 5-star. He flipped him out. Oh yeah, that's what I was. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry, completely missed my point. But they were talking about how Michigan didn't beat anybody this year, and I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, they beat Penn State and Ohio State, but besides that, they didn't beat anybody. That's what they were saying basically. And I was like, okay, let's get one thing straight: the Big Ten West and the Big Ten specifically, besides the Big Three, is not bad. They're just very inconsistent offensively. But like their trench play and their defense, I'd put pretty much against anybody in the country, to be honest with you. Any team. I was trying to tell them, I was like,
that didn't play anybody this year. Look at Georgia.
I was like, Purdue. Did you watch a Purdue game this year? They have 2 guys on their defensive line that, like, I'd be shocked if I'm not hearing their name in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like those 2 dudes that they had in their front, so they were freaking beasts. I mean, and every O-line pretty much is solid. Pretty much. Every defensive front is solid, pretty much. So, I mean the Big Ten's good.
Past 3-4 years, I would say like our fronts have been the weakest in the entire Big Ten.
Yeah.
The entire Big Ten.
Yeah.
We haven't been the worst team in the entire Big Ten those years, but we've had the worst fronts.
Not this year.
Not this year. No, not this year.
No, but
the past 3-4.
So if you're Jordan Seaton, though, people might question it. Colorado to Maryland. I'm like, Colorado's playing in the Big 12, a trenchless league. He wants to go to a place where there's trenches, and the NFL actually evaluates. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the NFL doesn't evaluate the trenches of the Big 12. They couldn't care less.
In a place where the head coach isn't the highlight.
Yeah,
players are.
That's a fair point too. It's really starting to look like the whole prime thing is it's losing altitude. Let's just put it that way. It's losing altitude, and they're in a mountain. They're in the mountainous region,
not the players.
They're in a mountainous region, and it's losing altitude.
See. I really want to beat them.
Dude, if we talk all this crap and then we lose to them again, no, we're winning. We're winning. We're going to be a better team next year. All these guys that we talked about that were in their first year that looked great, they're going to be in their second year. They're going to have another year of Coach Campbell in the weight room. They're going to have another year of development with Coach Rule, and with all the coaches, the schemes will be that much tighter. Coach White's defense will be that much better. We will have that many less turnovers.
Well, let's see.
I mean, like,
I'm just saying right now, Cornhusker Corner is going to go to that game. Colorado, Nebraska.
Honestly, that's probably the type of game that somebody will hopefully have tickets for us for.
Yeah. Well, I'm not just saying that. Like, I'm just saying like we should probably go to that one.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, the good thing about having grown up in and around Nebraska football is we know a lot of people in and around Nebraska football, especially through our dad's connections. I mean, he worked in the area, and so he has a lot of former business partners that are in the area and stuff. So it's fun going back. But well, I mean, we've sort of made it a tradition these last couple of years just because of friends' generosity, basically. But yeah, Nebraska's but Nebraska's a great place. Hopefully, we look really good. Let me just put it this way: I hope those Colorado tickets are expensive, because that will mean we looked good in our first game. If we don't look good in our first game,
who did play UTEP, right?
Yeah, UTEP. Yeah, okay. UTEP. Because
when we lose to UTEP, though, those tickets are going to be really
and then we could go. Yeah, no, I don't hope that you know what I mean though. It's indicative of something. It means that the team looks good. Because that's been the thing. Like you could get like 50-yard line seats for like $80. You know what I mean? You could get like $5 nosebleeds for most home games, $5 to $15. I mean, Wisconsin had it even worse. The Nebraska-Wisconsin game, I saw $3.50 tickets somebody bought, like for the Wisconsin-Nebraska game in Camp Randall. Because when there's no hype behind teams and they just need to sell tickets. No, I mean, I graduated from Houston this past weekend, University of Houston. Shout out to me. I had to say it on the podcast.
Shout out to you. Good
I graduated.
Job. That was going to be my final thought. But.
Yeah. We'll beat you to it. So the thing about Houston is, I mean, if you're a student especially, but it's really easy to find tickets there. It's really easy because even if the sports are good, like, I mean, basketball fills it up. For a good game, but they're like a Final Four perennial, like Elite Eight, every once in a while Final Four style team, and like you'll go, and it's not just any game that's full, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, and with football, it's definitely not just any game that's full. No. Like if you
lose one game, you lose half your fan base.
Yeah, my advisor, my high school advisor, graduated from North Carolina, and he talked about their ticket lottery and what you had to do to get tickets to a North Carolina basketball game and what it was like and how you were just like, you won the lottery if you got a free ticket to the game as a student. Mm-hmm. Well, at Houston, it's like, you could the game could be started and there's definitely tickets left. You log in. It's basically like you have a ticket. And so Nebraska, I mean, we got to count our blessings. We got the fans to make it happen. This place is ready to explode.
Yeah.
And hopefully we got the quarterback to do it. It's exciting.
Yeah, no, for sure. And to that point, I just wanted to mention one thing. Yeah. Because I don't think we're going to meet again before this. So my alma mater, Liberty, New Year's Six Bowl against Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
They're probably going to lose because their defense sucks, but their offense is elite. Like, I've watched every single game of theirs. Their offense is so good, dude. Their offense is so good. Like, their quarterback is really, really, really good. Jamie Chadwell is their coach.
Yeah, he's a hell of a coach.
Yeah, he won Group 5 Coach of the Year.
You're just lucky you have Jamie Chadwell and not Tim Beck. Did you see the Tim Beck thing yesterday? I have to show you. Look at this picture that the official Coastal Carolina, which is your alma mater's rival, like their core rival.
Tim Beck was the offensive coordinator on New Mexico State.
He's the head coach of Coastal. Did you not know? We've talked about this a number of times. He's the head coach of Coastal. Tim Beck. Look it up. He's on their socials. I was looking at it yesterday. But look at this picture that they posted. That's like, here's our head coach. It's National Signing Day. Yada, yada, yada. It's the last thing you're going to expect a college to post. Bro, what is that? Bro, what is that? If you're listening to the podcast, you can look up Tim Beck, Coastal Carolina picture. I'm sure it'll come up. That's all I just looked up. And it's basically just him posing shirtless, decent shape, middle-aged body, decent shape. But it's like, why are you having your coach pose shirtless? Their mascot, does he always wear those shorts? Does their mascot always wear those shorts?
I don't know.
But he's posing with a bunch of bikini-clad ladies. Is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting post from the official Coastal Carolina football account that they posted on their Insta and Twitter yesterday. That was like National Signing Day is here or something like that. I don't even know they said Teal Tuesday from the island. That's Liberty's rival. That's Blake's alma mater's rival.
Yeah. Our old rival. We used to be both in the FCS, same division together. Yes. So that's where the rivalry used to come from.
Right.
But that being said,
what are your thoughts?
that being said, I'm really proud of Liberty. They're undefeated right now. They're undefeated.
Yeah.
And
I don't see Jamie Chadwell doing something like that. That's my point. I don't see him doing something like that.
Even though I think he's in better shape than Tim.
Yeah. But I don't see him greenlighting that. You know.
No, not after Jerry.
That? That's why it's crazy that I got it posted. Tim Beck had to greenlight it. All the girls had to greenlight it. The mascot had to green light it. The director,
no,
the photo
they showed
the
up.
photographer.
They showed up on the beach to do that. So everybody was in complete agreement. But
it just looks, it was ridiculous. It was going around social media
would
yesterday.
Never do anything like that after the whole Jerry incident.
Yeah, no, that would not be a good look for Liberty. Liberty fan base would not like that very much. All the homeschooled and Amish parents would not like that at all. Well, I'm not wrong. Come on, I'm not wrong.
No. I mean, but also there's other people there too. It's a great school. I enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's honestly the campus. Yeah. It's one of the prettiest campuses.
No,
it's so pretty.
And their facilities. I will say this: their facilities on their athletic side are top tier.
Do they still have that weight room where you get in the elevator and you go down?
No, they have a better one.
They have an even better one now.
Yeah.
Is that weight room for like all the other athletics now? Probably.
No, they probably demolished it. Put something else there.
Yeah. It was always interesting to me, though, that the space was like 50 feet under the field or whatever.
Yeah. No, it was cool. I forgot that you went there with me.
I've been there a number of times. I mean, I went there and stayed with you like 2 different times.
No, but I forgot that you went on the recruiting trip with me.
Oh, yeah, I did. That was, yeah. I forget where we stayed that time. I stayed in your dorm one time. I stayed in your dorm one time.
That's when I was going there. Yeah.
And then I stayed in your house that you had in Lynchburg one time.
Yeah, on Yeardley. Yeah, downtown.
And then I stayed. I went back and stayed in your house again. That was the other one. I stayed in that house twice, like a month later. And then
no. You stayed at my townhouse.
Yeah, it was 2 different houses, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The second one was much
the first
nicer.
one you stayed at my downtown one. The second one you stayed.
The first one was a shack. The first one was like it was haunted. The second one was much better.
Yeah.
And then I went back and we stayed there for a little while for Blair's graduation, and your graduation. No, it was your graduation. We went to both of them. So I've been there a number of times.
Yeah.
Number of times. But yeah, Liberty's nice.
Yeah, no, it's nice.
That's how we'll end it. Liberty.
That's what we'll end it. Liberty's nice. Well, that's gonna be it for us today on the Cornhusker Corner. Remember to like and subscribe to the like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can find us anywhere podcasts are found. Always remember though that there's no place like this podcast.